Hello everybody, so today we're going to be doing a video on Yagorath. This is going to be a quick feedback video. We're going to go over the issues with her and then some potential solutions at the end of the video. I'm going to be showing gameplay during all of this, but here is her kit in case you don't know what she does. And now let's move on to some quick objective stuff before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the video. So this talent description is wrong. Here's what it actually does. She has a CCR card in her build, which Evil Mojo has previously said is bad because of these reasons. These are from patch notes. One of her cards doesn't actually do anything above level 1. The movement of the character is buggy when you're near walls sometimes. And one of her abilities says it's a 5-second cooldown, but in practice it's more like 1 to 2 seconds. Onto her actual design. When you shoot as this character, you use your scoped in sensitivity, not your normal sensitivity, which really doesn't make any sense and does not feel good to play. So I'm really just not sure why it's there. For the talents, one of them just does more damage. The speed is cool in theory, but in practice, the things that usually want to go in usually have some sort of movement. So there's not really anything that's going to benefit from this, right? The things that want to go in already have ways to go in. And this is the one where the description is wrong. One of them turns her into Discount Torvald. This is a cool idea, I guess. I never noticed this talent in practice, though, so I don't know if it's good or not, because I never feel it, which is sort of a flaw in the design. The third one, it sort of encourages you to AFK on point, so I don't think it's like poorly balanced or anything. I just think it doesn't really promote a healthy play style. For her abilities, so she's basically got 2 passives, right? One of them, she is displacement immune, and I want to clarify this is displacement immune and not CC immune. Evil Mojo has called this CC immune. That is not true. And when I heard that you made a tank who was CC immune, I kind of lost my mind because that would be absolutely insane. So displacement immune basically means con stun, Makoa hook, con alt, Domba's alt, fearing her won't move her. She's also immune to polymorphs, which is a weird exception. So like she can be stunned, she just can't be moved around. She also has 40% DR as a passive ability when she's in standing form. I call them standing and rolling forms. I don't know if that's actually what they're called, but that's what makes sense to me, so that's what I call them. So the point of 40% DR when you're in standing form is to survive, right? She needs some way to survive. She's standing still. If she doesn't have some way to survive things, she's just gonna, standing still in a shooter is not great, right? And I feel like the reason that she has 40% DR is that she doesn't feed an insane amount of alt charge, right? And 40% DR accomplishes both of those things. But it also means that she is effective 40% rejuvenate in her base kit, and it means that shooting her feels absolutely awful. So it accomplishes the goals, right? But it also means that she doesn't feel good to shoot. She takes healing super well, right? If you shoot her for 1400, it only takes 1000 healing to bring her right back up. It makes her really tanky with pretty much any healer, which isn't really a bad thing. Like, I get she has to survive, but it just doesn't really feel good to play against, right? This is a shooter game, and you made a character who feels bad to shoot, because either all your damage is getting healed through, or when you shoot her, you're seeing these super low numbers, and you're putting clip after clip into her, and it just does not feel good to shoot her, right? And I guess that's themes. That's the thing about her, right? I don't think you were supposed to put the feeling of helplessness in your game quite this well, right? We need a way to make her survive, not feed alt charge, and not feel awful to play against, right? DR makes her survive, it doesn't feed alt charge, but it feels bad to play against. If you give her just a ton of HP, it makes her survive, but it feeds alt charge, and it doesn't feel bad to play against. So the easiest solution in my eyes, right, is to give her that ton of HP, but don't make her feed alt charge. Like, literally, just make shooting her give less alt charge. You have the power to do this, and it accomplishes all three of those goals. So even if she still survives for a long time, the complaints will probably change from this character isn't fun to play against to this character is strong. Then you can fix if they're too strong by just changing numbers around. Her autos are fine. The only issue I really have with them is that they have like this little damage amp mechanic that doesn't really add anything to her playstyle, right? If you want to shoot someone right now with this damage amp mechanic, you hold down left mouse button and right mouse button, right? You use your spray and you use your quills and you shoot them. If you didn't have the damage amp mechanic and you want to shoot someone, you'd shoot them with your acid and your quills, right? It doesn't actually change anything. If you want the character to have more damage, then give her more damage. Like, I don't know why this is here, right? So, like, Chekhov's gun or something. That's what that means, right? I'm not sure on that. The form swap thing is, like, her whole stick, right? That's cool. Acceleration, same thing, part of her kit. It's necessary because she can't be on a mount. That's, like, whatever. It should probably be explained a little bit better that this ability can be crippled. That's really my only complaint about it. I'd also be able to boop people multiple times with the same acceleration, but that might be strong. Primal Vision, the ping. It's like a reveal like that is really, really strong. I don't necessarily have an issue with it. It's just it's Cassialt, right? It's Cassialt on an ability. And like, yeah, sure, you could talk about Fury, but in practice, it's Cassialt on an ability. So it's also really buggy. Sometimes it just doesn't work. The range is a bit big, but really that's it. It's just a strong ability. So I want to talk about Hardin and her alt together, but before I do, I want to go on a tangent about Raum. So Raum is a character who's strong because he makes like a ton of space, right? He outtrades pretty much every DPS. He dominates backlines. He's insane, but there are ways to deal with him, right? You can like draft a lot of CC and a lot of damage, right? And you stop his dash and you kill him. Or you can draft a backline that's strong against tank dive, like maybe like triple DPS. He doesn't do great into triple DPS. And you can draft tanks that have good matchups into him, like Barrack and Khan and Alice. If you don't have any one of those, right, Raum has a good matchup most of the time. If the other team has damage but no CC, you can just run around forever. If the other team has CC but they don't have damage, you can walk around and live forever. If the other team has damage but no CC, you can run around and live forever. If the other team has CC but no damage, you can walk around and live forever. If the other team has a strong anti-tank backline, right, like triple DPS or something, but they don't have good tank matchups, then you can bully tanks. And if the other team has strong tank matchups, but not a strong anti-tank backline, then you can bully the backline. And those counters are like sort of in draft, and they're kind of sort of hard counters, which I don't think is great, but the counters are there. So Raum and Yagorath are obviously similar characters, right? They're tanks with high health pools and a lot of mobility. So these counters for Raum, right, they don't exist for Yagorath, right? They don't work for this character. And this is where we tie it back to Hardin and her alt. If you draft damage in CC to try to stop her and kill her, well, you can't really stop her, right? You can't cripple her, you can't displace her, which is those are the two ways you stop Raum from dashing. So you can't actually stop her from running. If you can stop her from using acceleration with cripples, but that's really only there to stop her from getting out. And if you have damage, well, she has Hardin, right? So she's just gonna tank any damage that you really throw at her. And even if you do throw enough damage at her to break through Hardin, to break through her DR, to break through her 6,500 HP pool, she can ult and she gets 4k more HP, right? She has the highest survivability out of anything in the game that has any amount of mobility. If you draft a strong anti-tank backline, right, something that Yagorath doesn't want to push, even with all of her survivability, she doesn't want to push it, then she still does well on point, right? And she doesn't necessarily lose any matchups. Because either she has a good matchup, right? Like something like an Inara. Yagorath, I would consider to have a good matchup into Inara. And if it's something like a Barrack, where Yagorath doesn't have such a great matchup because of the shield, then Yagorath can hold the space just next to point, right? Most maps have like a small cubby or something, or a area next to point, and Yagorath can sit in that place out of DPS LOS and threaten ult on the main tank, right? Sort of like con ult. And if you really wanted to, you could come up with some combination that would counter Yagorath, right? You come up with like, okay, if we would draft these tanks, these DPS, and this support on this map, you could beat her, right? You could make her do absolutely nothing for the entire game. But there's two issues with that. The first is that you actually have to have those counters in draft, which isn't consistent in anything that's not organized competitive play. And secondly, her teammates aren't going to be sitting around watching this all happen. If a backline can deal with a Yagorath, it's still going to take time, right? She's so tanky against literally everything in the game because of Hardin, right? So it's just going to take a long time to kill her. So during this time when they're all staring at this Yagorath, any DPS that wants to can come in and follow up on the space that the Yagorath is making, right? They can just do it for absolutely free. And then if the backline decides that they want to focus down the flank first, then Yagorath has ult. She can force the other team to look at her, or they lose. Because you have to focus down the ult, or else she gets a kill. Even if you do focus her down, she might get it anyways. And if you do successfully focus her down, and she does not get her ult off, she gets 50% of it back. The reward for punishing her is like a 2-second stun, which you punish by looking at her more, which is what she wants anyways, so you're not actually punishing her. Countering Yagorath does not stop Yagorath from doing what she wants to do. It's not really an issue with Raum and other off tanks, because if you can properly counter a Raum, he can't do what he wants to do, right? Even a free Raum will be really difficult to deal with, but it's doable. And this is also how the general rule of off tank and flank diving support in DPS works, right? The off tank is going to make space and try to take attention, and the flank's going to try to clean up. And then the backline has to figure out how to live and who to focus down. But there's a few key differences with Yagorath, right? She takes exponentially longer to kill. You cannot stop her from getting to the backline. She has CC immunity on demand. She has extra DR on demand. Her ult gives CC immunity, gives her an extra 4,000 health, and forces you to look at her. So if you look at any other off tank, right, there's always something that you can do in the draft or in the game to stop them from doing what they want to do. Where's the counterplay with Yagorath? So it's important to mention that all Yagorath really does is buy time. Like, by herself, her damage isn't crazy, or her movement isn't crazy. I get she stands still, but like her movement is still there, right? And her ult can get focused down. So she only really gets broken when people follow up on her, right? Because she can buy so much time, and she can force people to look at her. So at lower levels, I don't really see her becoming a balance issue. It's only really when people start to follow up on each other, which, like, I don't know when that happens, like probably Diamond Masters-ish, I'm not sure. So now for some potential solutions. Like I said before, remove the DR, give her that ton of HP, but make her give less ult charge, right? It keeps her survivability without making her frustrating to play against. Hardin and her ult are really only strong because they take so long, right? So if Hardin only lasted like 2 seconds or a second and a half, she could still use them for CC immunity and to, like, you know, survive some things, like maybe a Willow Seedlings or Dredge ult or something, right? And same with her ult, right? If you could burn her ult quickly, even if the ult itself, pulled people in faster, it wouldn't be as strong anymore. It wouldn't be as oppressive anymore, because she wouldn't be able to force people to look at her for so long. So if you made both of those abilities last shorter, that could potentially be a fix, and then the exact numbers depend on playtesting. I don't know. Her cooldown on swap could actually go to 5 seconds, right? Because right now, here's a clip of me chasing a Kinessa where I effectively don't have to stand still if I do not want to. So if you add, again, I don't know if this is intended or not, but if the cooldown is 5 seconds or 3 seconds or 4 seconds or whatever, then there's counterplay by playing around her movement cooldown, right? Yagorath, she stood here. She's stuck there for the next few seconds. So I'm going to position out of her LOS, and then I can try to focus on the flank or something. But then if the Yagorath positions cleverly, or maybe the flank comes in from a different angle, and there's some depth there. And if you really wanted to, you could add some interactions with cripples and roots and basically add ways to stop her from getting to the backline if you have the right characters. And that just about sums it up. Yeah, this character is kind of obnoxious right now. She is very strong and not fun to play against, so I hope you enjoyed me feeding on Yagorath. I'm not a tank player. I'm only like level 10 with this character, so I probably made her look worse than she is, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope I explained myself well, and I hope this feedback gets taken into consideration. So, you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.